Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And today we are venturing a little bit away from cutting edge news, popular culture. We're actually transitioning back to our roots. We're going a little more scientific here because there was an interesting thing that came out of France recently that's talking about the overlap between modern humans and Neanderthals.
Yeah,
And
oh,
I'll go
we
for it.
keep going. It's a rather fun thing. A lot of people don't really know or don't really think about the time period between Neanderthals and humans as of something that could have coexisted. People like to think of evolution as, literally, knocking dominoes over. When one falls, it has no impact on the others.
Or it's just one. It's like once it's dead, it's dead, and the next group shows up. Evolution doesn't work like that. Evolution just says, "Hey, it works until it don't.
Yeah.
It ain't perfect."
But the interesting thing is, a lot of modern genetics and DNA have shown that in Europe specifically and parts of Asia, humans share roughly about 3% of their DNA with Neanderthal. So there was a lot of inbreeding, a lot of
Well, not inbreeding, interbreeding.
interbreeding. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
That could have been a thing
In
too.
Yeah,
it probably was a thing, but that's not the point we're trying to convey here
no,
at
and I'm
Alabama.
glad you clarified me on that because I didn't realize I misspoke. But yes, interbreeding between the two breeds, and there was a sharing of genetics. So it showed that we were close enough with our sister species to interbreed and to maintain viable offsprings. So we're not creating the human version of a mule.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
there's the whole debate on whether or not Neanderthals are solely separate. There is the debate of Homo sapien Neanderthalis and Homo sapien sapiens.
yeah, but we're not here to get into that too much. Evolution is a spectrum. It's a gradual change. Gradient line, all that good stuff. So what we've got looking at here is a very sciencey article that focuses on France and northern Spain, a place that had a lot of Paleolithic humans and a lot of Neanderthals living in it. And well, it says that there's almost 3,000 years of overlap for the two species coexisting, which is a lot longer than most people give it credit for. Usually, the theory goes that within a few hundred years of humans showing up, Neanderthals are outcompeted and thus destroyed.
Yeah, so this shows that there was a lot of cohabitation at the very least. Obviously, the breeding question still maintains, but it shows that there was a
Mhm.
longer time span. And this article is focused almost entirely in the northern Spain and French region.
Mhm.
But we're talking 40 to 50,000 calibrated years before present. So we're in the year 2022. So that was 48 or no, 52,000 years ago, 48,000 years BC, if you're going in that. It's
Yeah,
confusing. They calibrate it, they make it all correct, but they go before present. So you're talking 50,000 years ago from today. And it just
approximately.
approximately.
Yes.
God, get
There,
talking into
there's so
calibrated
much.
years gets
And calibrated years is confusing because we're actually several years past calibrated year because the calibrated year was the date at which the first carbon dating reaction is set to, and that happened in the 20th century. So
not to mention after all the nuclear bombs, it ruined the whole scale. So
yeah,
future archaeologists will
we
not be able to carbon date us.
we've had to redo a lot of stuff. Yeah. Um, what's most interesting me about this article is a lovely super long word in it, Châtelperronian, which is a fun little thing because it's very highly disputed in biological anthropology and in archaeology. Châtelperronian is the sort of Paleolithic period of the Neanderthals. and there's a lot of argument about whether the Neanderthals were capable of a Paleolithic, of performing stoneworks and stone tools to this magnitude, or even just using them. And this cohabitation, this extended cohabitation, seems to prove that yeah, there would have been a Chattelperonian. There would have been Paleolithic Neanderthals.
Yeah, and they found evidence at other sites throughout Europe of Neanderthals that have discovered and utilized flint knapping. So they were capable of tools. And actually, the interesting thing is the cranial cavity for most Neanderthals is actually larger than Homo sapiens. So they had bigger heads.
There is we in human evolution, they talk about increase in cranial capacity. This doesn't necessarily mean an increase of intelligence, but it's when you see an increase of cranial or cognitive abilities, there is an increase in cranial capacity, but it doesn't necessarily mean Neanderthals were inherently smarter or humans are inherently smarter. Actually, up until recently, with the prominent use of cesarean sections, human cranial capacity was actually decreasing. So that was that was an interesting little side note with but yeah, cranial capacity of Neanderthals on average, as far as we're aware, is 1500 cc, and humans up until like then, I think we got to about 1200 cc.
Yeah, and
So they got big brain.
well, the thing with humans versus Neanderthals is, I believe the difference was in the development of, I think, the prefrontal cortex. Neanderthals had a more limited or a smaller version of that muscle within the brain, for lack of a better scientific term here, and that limits your ability to think ahead, to make long-term plans beyond the immediate. As such, humans can play chess. A Neanderthal could not.
Yeah,
is how it works. But
kind of circling back to this, it's very interesting if you look at Figure 1, the chart that they post of directly dated Homo sapiens and directly dated Neanderthals. You see that there is actually quite a lot of overlap between these dates. I mean, you see them pretty well distributed. There's not one clear
there's
deviation.
not one clear bias. Yeah.
The article does also mention, which I thought was really interesting, that no late Neanderthals had evidence of human DNA. And so but my first thought is, like with anything in this field, especially when dealing with fossils or remains, not everything survives. And maybe so like you can't just like throw out the entire theory that because like we know with humans we have Neanderthal, a lot of us have Neanderthal DNA, but there in the introduction it talks about whether or not in the later stages, whether or not later Neanderthals are interbreeding with humans. It easily could just be those remains didn't survive.
Yeah, and I remember also from years and years ago, there was a theory put forth that like the pairing had to go a certain way, like it had to be like a Neanderthal man with a human woman, and it couldn't be a human man with a Neanderthal woman just because of just uh, birth capacity or some other such thing, like a Chihuahua and a Doberman.
Yeah, that's another thing with the cranial capacity. One of the ideas as to why like humans' cranial capacity was being limited so much before the prominent use of cesarean sections is because the human pelvis can't, like, your head has to go through. So like if you have too big of a head, it's gonna be a rough ride. And with humans changing so much to be more bipedal, it limits that. Whereas Neanderthals were a little more stout, and so it allowed them to have that increased cranial capacity with less issues. Because giving birth already horrifying experience.
Dude, I would have died in childbirth given my head size.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a
Wait, childbirth or just at birth? Because if you're giving birth with your head's childbirth, if you die in childbirth, you die while giving birth.
no.
You
Honestly,
I
at
would
birth.
die as a result of childbirth. Like in the process, I would die because I would not be able to escape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how you're presenting it as I must escape the womb.
All right, that's gonna end it for us now.
Yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like. If there's a specific topic that you would like to hear us ramble about, be sure to leave a comment down below. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our other content that we upload. And, like always, we'll see you guys next week.